number of keys and number of thumb keys are related, and also how the keys are
Located.
yes, and the pinky stagger, and everything is kind of connected. So maybe we could talk a little bit about thumb keys and thumb key design.
We have from the, let's say, minimal approach, right?
Just one on split it in half.
Yes. Also, maybe this would be in the area, right? Because you cannot go too deep, right? Also, we have the voilier with just a couple, and then we enter like the next step probably would be. So you have the
Moonlander.
Yes, Moonlander has 4 on each side. The Raise has 4 on each side too.
And we also have the Kinesis Advantage, which has
6 per side.
6 per side.
Yeah, and then the kind of the higher end, higher spectrum. It's this one with the Defy with 8 on each side. So the designs are vastly different between all these keyboards, and I think it's interesting how different keyboard designs went in one direction or another one. So probably the starting point is the Kinesis Advantage. This keyboard is based on a brand called Maltron that was, I don't know if it was the 60s, 70s, something like this, but basically they created very similar keyboards to this one. Basically the same shape. And then Kinesis turned this design into, like, let's say, mass production design, making it cheaper, although it was quite expensive. So this design, it's been there for a long time. But when you turn this design into flat, like the Ergonomic, then it's like you've lost the, let's say, the logic behind this curvature and this thumb design, right? And again, you're in this situation that you can hit 2 keys, but now you don't even have this key wall, right?
Yeah, and even probably this key, my thumb wants to rest closer, so it's not so natural.
And hitting this key, now it's really difficult. Like you need to go up over the other key, right?
Yeah, completely. And then you have to be very careful because you can press this key
accidentally. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I would say then the evolution from, at least for ZSA, the company that builds these keyboards, the evolution was to create this thumb cluster. And
maybe you can try that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a shot. And actually, let's use the Defy to compare it with. Okay, so if I'm resting my hand on top of it, okay, I can comfortably hit this key. Okay, I can more or less comfortably hit this key. My hands are medium size. I'm 180, so I'm not like a large guy, but I would say it's more like average. But hitting this one is a stretch. Hitting this one for me, it requires to go up. And actually, my hand kind of rests here in the middle, right?
Yes, I remember when trying to use the Moonlander, I even tried to put the space here. So because my thumb would rest naturally, maybe I can grab the other half and show it here. But when I try this, my hand would rest there. Yeah, that's more my thumb would naturally rest. And this is already a stretch for me. Okay. And that's I don't do that.
Yeah, you're a bit shorter than me with a bit smaller hands, right? So
yeah, but my hands are not that small, like at 19 centimeters from the base
from the base to
here, which is, I would say,
quite standard.
Quite standard.
Okay.
Yeah, so not small hands.
Okay. So yeah, so I would say that this double key design here reached this point, right? But it lost the sense because of the curve, and now this is even more distance because they wanted to have this, right? So I would say this is one school of thought of thumb cluster design, right?
Like the grid kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. The grid with the keys on the top and so on, right? So I would say this design has 2 comfortable keys, and then questionable the other ones. If you have very large hands, probably you can hit comfortably this one. This one you will probably always need to raise your hand, right? So now let's move to the other kind of school of thought on thumb clusters. Then you have keyboards like the Korn, for example, right? That this has this curved thumb cluster, or let's say the Keyboardio Model 100 that have this kind of curved thumb cluster, right? Yeah. So the idea of this thumb cluster design is that it follows the natural arc of your thumbs. So if you're just moving your thumb in that direction, you should comfortably access all the keys, or at least most of the keys. In our particular case, we designed these thumb clusters thinking that they should be comfortable for any size of hand. Also, another thing that it's not really talked about, that it's the alignment of your hands. because even though you could put your keyboard, let's say, shoulder width and have it straight, still people do weird things with their wrists. So actually your fingers are not perfectly aligned in the columns, right? So in our particular case, we wanted small hands and large hands to be able to use at least 4 or 5 keys comfortably. If we compare it to this, let's say, I don't know how to call this one.
Maybe we can bring the Voyager, which is not a corn, but similar.
Yeah. So in this case, you can hit comfortably 2 keys because there's 2 keys, right? But from a design standpoint, at least you can hit them comfortably, right? I would like to have them kind of in a curved position, but because there's only 2, it's fine. If you would add a third one, maybe it would get a little bit wonky. And there's, let's say, another level to thumb key design apart from this arc versus, I don't know how to call this one, grid, maybe. Yeah, let's say.
Or box.
Box, yeah. That it's the 2 level of the keys, right? We call the row underneath the under row. And we've seen, we could say that this keyboard maybe kind of, this design, kind of follows this because you have keys on top of each other. But the truth is that they are on the same plane, so you cannot really hit them comfortably. But there's other keyboards. The Kinesis one has the top keys higher, yes, and also the More Glove 80, right? This has 2 rows, 2 levels. Two levels. And if you're comfortably moving your fingers in this way, the thing is like here, for some people it's comfortable to do this movement. For if you have large hands, you will be able to access them comfortably, but for others, it's not as comfortable. So I would say like the main ones are these keys on the top, and then the under row are kind of, let's say, more secondary keys.
I think one important thing, like for example, in many ergonomic keyboard forums, more than 3 keys of thumb keys is not good. That's kind of like a dogma or something like that. Yeah. But for me, and when they see the Defy, say too many thumb keys. But what you just explained is very important. Let's say here you're going to reach 3 or 4 keys very comfortably, but for you might be 3 different keys or 4 different keys than for me, and somebody else will use other 4. So we have so many keys, so you find the perfect ones for you. You don't need to use all of them.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't use all the keys on my thumb cluster. I use like 6 and 6, and I have quite good flexibility and range in my thumbs. But if you have a, let's say, stiff thumb, then maybe you're only hitting 3 comfortably. But if you're quite flexible and you can move your thumbs around, then maybe you can hit the 8 on each side. But this gives you the possibility to find the best location for wherever you want to put in your thumb cluster. If you only have 2 or 3 keys, that's what you have. You don't have options. You cannot really optimize your layers. In the same way, the inner columns, you don't really need to use them. Even the outer columns, you don't really need to use them. But by having these keys, you have the option to do it, right? So I would say that it's more, even though it's kind of counterintuitive, it's more friendly to have more thumb keys because you have the option to customize it. But at the same time, it's more difficult to have more thumb keys because you need to make the decisions of where you're going to put what functions, right? So if you have only 2 or 3 keys, you only have 2 or 3 keys. So there's not many decisions that you're going to be making there, right? So in this, let's say, ergonomic journey, I would say more thumb keys, it's more difficult in the sense of configuring it, getting used to it, and so on. But from an ergonomic standpoint, it's better if it's properly designed. Because from my point of view, this layout is not properly designed because you have 2 effective keys, right? Well, if you only want 2 keys, then it's totally fine. But if you want more keys, then it's not good enough.
Those keys might as well not be there.
Yeah. Well, you could say it's like extra keys that you will need to raise your hand and hit it. So it's more like, it's not easy access comfortable, right? It's more like, for example, if for me, these keys here are the comfortable ones, and I need to move my hand to hit this one, I would put this key like similar to this one.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
In the under row. But yeah, so there's these 2 schools two
schools of thought.
Yes, schools of thought or design schools, yes. And then we have from low amount of keys, like the Emistel Barocco, also the Voyager, and on the extreme we have the Defy. And it's interesting to understand where different keyboard designs are coming from. Like the ZSA keyboards are coming from copying the Maltron that was copied by Kinesis, and then the Ergodox was an open source design that they started producing, and then they went into the Moonlander and then into the Voyager. In our case, we are coming from, okay, what's the range of motion of your thumbs? How our hands move naturally? and then we moved into that direction that other keyboards like the Model 100 from Keyboardio have the same kind of design and so on.
Yeah, I will also kind of bring the Raise 2 into the conversation,
Yeah, actually,
because it has a really
that's a great point. Yes,
interesting approach for the thumb cluster. Maybe we want it flat for the demonstration.
yeah, that's a great point, because this thumb cluster is weirdly comfortable. You know,
And it has like a mix. It looks like a grid, but you kind of use it like if it were a
kind
curved.
of curved. Yes, totally. So accessing this two, it's kind of if it's curved, right? And then this one too. So these three here, it's kind of like it's curved.
It's an arc.
Yeah. The thing is, like, the area of your finger that you use to hit the keys is different. So it doesn't follow this arc naturally where you're hitting every key with the same area of the thumb, right? So in my case, I'm hitting this one more with the tip, and then this one, but the lower one I'm hitting in more, I don't know how to call this area of the fingers, but kind of in the center of the finger here. That it's also similar to how I would hit a spacebar in a regular keyboard, right?
Yes.
And then let's say the uncomfortable key is this one, the inner one, where you have to actually flex your...
that
fingers.
one I cannot reach comfortably, but other people have really good thumb flexibility inwards and they can reach it.
Yeah, and there's another thing is, like, this keyboard was designed so people could play games in a comfortable way, right? And there's a few features that people don't really know, but are gamery features, let's say. And one of them is this area here. And this is because gamers usually put the index one unit to the left.
Yes.
Yeah, because they're pinky, they want it to for shift, control, and so on. If you do that and you move one unit to the left, your hand, then your thumb also moves 1 unit to the left. And then you're probably going to be accessing this key and the lower one comfortably. Yeah.
So that's why it's there.
Yeah, exactly. So even though it's like, oh, why this key's here? It's difficult to access, because there's people that position their hands 1 unit outward.
Yeah, that's why the Raise is wider here.
Exactly.
Than there.
Yeah, and still you can comfortably use this key. And if you do so, you can actually comfortably hit the 4 ones. So in a gaming scenario, it's even more comfortable than in a regular, let's say, touch typing scenario. But yet, this let's say, thumb cluster design follows the Mistel Barocco, but we split it and then added the under row because we believe that there was space because of this arc that your thumb follows. And we realized that for gamers, this key is actually useful too, because you're moving. For those gamers that use the pinky in the caps lock, shift, and control, they're moving their hand.
The traditional WASD.
Yeah, the WSD. Yes, exactly. That's it, correct.
I think one more thing that we need to mention about thumb keys that is quite overlooked is the shape of the keycaps.
Yeah, totally.
Like, if we go back to the Kinesis, which I keep bringing back from the chair, you can see that, this Maltron and then this Kinesis and then the Ergodox and the Moonlander use concave keycaps, like normal regular keycaps that have this kind of shape. And that means that moving from one keycap to the other,
it's a little bit more difficult.
It's a bit more difficult, and it scratches. It scratches your finger a little bit.
Yes,
with the.
I must say, I would give some props to the Kinesis people.
That one
because at least there's some levels of height between the keys, right?
And they're also a little bit slanted, if you notice.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe the shape of the keys is not ideal, but at least the position, the height are a bit better. But if we compare them to basically the rest of the keyboards, it's like you're gonna be hitting on the edge because, like, your finger doesn't move this way, right? So I will be hitting on the edges of the key, and this is uncomfortable. And
moving from one key to the other, you kind of drag your finger and you kind of scratch your finger from with the keys.
Yeah, and actually, if you're trying to hit this one or this one, you're gonna be hitting it on an angle, so you're gonna be hitting on the edge of the keycap.
Exactly.
So if we compare this with the Defy and the Raise, we designed this key so it's easy to transition from one to another.
Instead of concave, they are convex.
Yeah, so instead of like this, they're like this.
Exactly.
Awesome. In the Raise, this is like if we flip the spacebar, and it's so much it's easier. But on top of that, we made the edge rounded. So when you're gonna be hitting it, it's smooth. Same with these keys. It's really easy to transition from one to another. And then with the Defy, the same thing. We made it in a way so you can kind of slide over the keys, and you can know where the edge of every key is because it's comfortable. And how to say it? There's enough resolution. Let's say that's proper English, but
your finger is quite intelligent.
The sensitivity in the finger, in your skin. It's enough for to know where the keys are located, right? So it's easier to navigate, it's easier to hit, it's more comfortable instead of hitting on the edge of keys.
Yeah, and we added this little kind
rounded edge.
No, it was
the little bump.
The
yes.
little bump,
so
like
you can
homing
locate
bump.
Exactly. So you can locate your finger.
And I must say, at the beginning that was really useful. With time, your muscle memory
you get used to it.
You get used to it, and for me, this thumb cluster is, I mean, I'm biased, but
yes, we're biased, but we really love it. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.